wake up, it's time to be free. Wake up, was blind, now I see. Wake up, it's time to be me. Wake up, my mind is the key.
Wake up, it's time to be me. Wake up, my mind is the key.
Welcome. It's Julian Gordon here with another episode of the Daily Jules, where I drop nuggets of wisdom to help you increase your degrees of freedom. Does not matter how many college degrees you have. The only degree that really matters is your degree of freedom. Does not matter how much money you make. What only matters is how you actually make money. And so today's episode, I want to talk about how to take that gold mine that you have, that knowledge that's up here, and actually turn that intellect into actual income. Most people actually start off with service-based businesses. In fact, services make up 80% of the U.S. economy. And services literally are you taking the processes, the frameworks, the methodologies that you have up here and selling them to other people, training other people to actually do that work for you. But oftentimes most companies start off as sole proprietors, right? I started off as a sole proprietor selling services, but at some point you ultimately want to build a business that is beyond you, right? So even in this stage, I want you to start thinking like a franchise. We've talked about it before in terms of how to create your framework. Whether you have a framework around how to clean your house, I think there's a book out there, or the Art of Tidiness or something like that, or The Secret of Tidiness. And this woman has built an empire off of her mental framework for how to actually stay tidy, right? There's frameworks around parenthood. There's frameworks around love. There's frameworks around business, building a business. There's frameworks around operations. There's all kinds of frameworks out there. Frameworks around hitting a baseball. Frameworks around shooting a basketball. Everybody will teach you differently, right? And you have frameworks that are in your head that you've actually been selling to your employer for wholesale prices. And I want you to extract that framework so that you can actually step out into the world and actually sell them at their true value. And so I actually want to use a common model to show you how this process works in terms of getting that idea out of your head and actually turning it into a skill and then into a service. But then after to service, how do you expand it beyond you? And I'm going to use Jay-Z for this, okay? So Jay-Z, right, his initial skill, was rapping, right? That's his skill. Whenever you're starting a service-based company, you got to start off with some sort of skill. A lot of people want to step into business and they have no kinds of skill. And a skill is basically something where you can replicate success more frequently than the average person, right? When Derek Jeter is playing baseball, he could hit the baseball more frequently into a gap than I could, right? A 90-mile-per-hour moving fastball, he is more skilled at that than I am, right? So we want to take your skill, and then from there we say, I have a skill. How do I turn this skill into a service that other people can benefit from, right? So the first thing, of course, with a musician, when they're thinking about a service, is concerts, right? Concerts. That's where it usually starts for them, right? So we know that there's not as much money in selling CDs anymore in this digital economy. And so artists really make their money on tour, right? Concerts is their service that they sell to the market, okay? Now, this is still time-based. Meaning Jay-Z has to leave Beyonce and Blue, and I don't know if they have another kid or whatnot, and he got to leave them side chicks alone, right? He got to leave them in order to actually do this service. At this point, we can't do holograms well, they can, but I don't know if somebody would pay to see a hologram of you doing a concert, right? We are moving into this virtual reality type situation, but we're not there yet. So he has to show up to deliver that concert. So how does he build a business that is beyond him? Because in this way, if something happens to him, if he gets sick or just something happens to him, then his main source of income actually would go away. Right? So we have to figure out how to build a business beyond him. So the next thing that most people do is which is products. Right? And of course, there are products like CDs, and he sold, I think he sold more records than Elvis, right? And he's been in the game for quite some time. Then he went on to create Rockaware, right? Now he's selling clothing. He's using his brand to sell clothing, right? He also did the partnership with Reebok, and he had the S. Carter, so he started selling shoes. Then Skull Candy, he did a partnership with them and sold headphones. Right, he saw Dr. Dre do it with Beats and said, "I'm gonna sell some headphones." Right, and then I think he had an equity stake in Carol's Daughter, which got bought out. I forgot from who, but they got bought out, right? So these are his own products that he was selling. But he has also done a great job of selling other people's products, right? He's done commercials for HP, Coca-Cola. He's done Duracell commercials. Who else has he done? I think Chrysler. I've heard his music in Chrysler commercials, right? Heineken, NBA 2000 NBA 2K13, I believe he was in, Samsung Galaxy. So he's not only sold his own products, but he's also sold other people's products. So now, once he does that commercial, he's probably getting paid royalties and things of that nature off of products. Okay? From there, you want to go into property. And you all know that I've bought properties. I bought 3 properties in the past year, right? This is how you start to diversify your own wealth. For him, it's physical property and it's intellectual, right? So physical property for him would be Barclays, even though he no longer has a stake there. He helped bring the Brooklyn Nets to Brooklyn, right? And that was a physical property where he got to use that facility because of the work that he did to bring them to Brooklyn with his relationship and his brand, right? He had the 40/40 clubs, right? 40/40 clubs. He also had a restaurant called the Spotted Pig, and then J Hotels, and then other physical property, which he talked about in 444, is art, right? He has art. That's the physical property, right? Bought it for $1 million. 2 years later, it was $2 million. A few years later, that is worth $8 million. Can't wait to give this stuff to my children, right? So this is how he's diversifying his wealth. Now, intellectual property, of course, Jay-Z has done great at owning his masters. Most musicians don't own the masters to their music. The record label does. I'm sure he does ghostwriting, where he gets royalty. Ghostwriting. I'm not sure if he still does ghostwriting, but I know he did it at some point. I know he had a stake in Fela, the Broadway show, which was awesome. And then, of course, he has his book Decoded, which is all intellectual property. Okay. Then from there, we want to go into people. This is how you start to diversify beyond yourself. And so, he has formed this partnership with Roc Nation. I think the latest deal that they did was $200 million for a 10-year period, right? So people, he has Roc Nation, right, which was a partnership with Live Nation. And he has musicians like, who is it? Rihanna, Shakira, MIA, J. Cole. These are the type of musicians that are in Roc Nation, and he's actually getting paid off of that now. And then he also has Roc Sports. And on that bill is people like Kevin Durant, Skylar Diggins from the WNBA, Robinson Cano is there, Geno Smith is one of his athletes, right? So when they get deals and they find deals beyond the court and the field for these individuals, he's getting paid off of that. And then the final thing is 5, your process, right? And so Jay-Z has been able to do this because he has a mental process in terms of how to use culture to actually create businesses. And so from that, with Steve Stout, he created translation advertising, right? Advertising. And basically, translation advertising just takes the processes that he used to build this empire and applies it to people like Kevin Durant, J. Cole, Skylar Diggins, etc. He does that same thing for them using his processes, right? So this is how you build a business beyond you. Now, if this goes, right, all of these things still have the possibility of appreciating and creating wealth. Even if this goes, even if he goes. And this is how you create legacy. This is how you build a business beyond yourself. You start with the services, but then you go to products, properties. You start putting your processes into people. You have your processes. You hire people to do work that you no longer need to be doing, and you have your processes. All right. So it's a long journey. You have to be committed to it for the long haul. But if you see this now and you even start to map out how this can play out for you, I think you'll be committed to the long journey, and you will actually leave a legacy. This is, think in 10-year terms. Think in 10-year terms, and I think you'll get there. All right. So this is Julian Gordon with another episode of the Daily Jules, and I will catch you in the next episode. Peace. I hope these mindsets, metaphors, and methodologies blessed you. If you desire more freedom, go to getfreenow.com to subscribe to the show on iTunes, YouTube, or Facebook, and get 4 of my best courses in the Freedom School for 100% free.